Today on the show, we have Mr. Taylor Holland, and Taylor is actually a friend of ours and our athletic trainer who keeps us healthy as we dive deep into things we probably should slowly progress into and then injure ourselves, and he helps us get back on track. But aside from being our athletic trainer, Taylor is a husband to his wife, Heather, a father to his daughters, Peyton and Willow. He is an entrepreneur. He is a nature enthusiast. Should I say nature enthusiast?
Yeah, likes the outside. I like it.
Yeah. And just an all-around great human being. So Taylor, thank you so much for being with us and for being on the Cameo show. I can't wait to dig in.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be talking with you guys.
Awesome. I know you have so much great insight to share, just kind of across the board from a knowledge perspective, but then also from a human emotion perspective. So actually, I have a funny story that I want to start with. You have a nickname that you don't know you have.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, and it's not a bad thing, but when our daughter Faith was little, we used to watch Hannah Montana on repeat all the time. And there is this boy that she has a crush on, and in the movie, his name is Travis. And when she screams desperately, Travis, it sounds like she says, Drive-us. And I'm not sure where Taylor to Travis came from, but somehow you have been nicknamed, this is embarrassing, you have been nicknamed Drive-us in our house.
Really? Wow.
So anytime Greg and I refer to you, why?
That's so funny. So is it in your phone contacts too, or do you draw the line with just nicknames?
No, it's just between Greg and I, and now everyone who's listening, and now the secret's out, you know, too.
So it was because when you had your first office in the back of the boxing gym, we would come in and be like, Travis! like, you know, my shoulder's falling off. Help!
Yeah. So it kind of has stuck all these years later. And
that's so funny.
Greg and I refer to you around the house, we're like,
so weird, man.
You have an appointment with Drive-us this week? Like, it's not even the same, but it is special to us. So
yeah, I love stories like that. And like, it's so funny when things like actually stick too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It is definitely stuck. So now you know how
Secrets
weird we
out
are.
of the bag.
That's right. Yep. So you kept me healthy through multiple things that I've had going on. And that's how we initially met, probably about 5 years ago. I think my most grateful and memorable moment was when I did that crazy self-inflicted challenge where I called it the half calendar running club, where I ran half the amount of miles for the number of the day it was for an entire month. And I just want to say that you went above and beyond, and maybe you don't even remember, but I remember how special it was that not only did I come see you and you helped me, but I was going through like double-digit days, 100-mile week at the very end of that. And you spent time with me on the phone while I was literally running to make sure that I was like mentally even okay, not just physically. I was really struggling there somewhat at the end. And so when I say overall great human being, those are the things that I am referring to, just the over-the-top attention to making sure that you are servicing your clients who have become friends, I'm sure, in a well-rounded, holistic way. And I'm very grateful to you for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to be a part of your journeys, you know. That's what it's all about, is just trying to keep people healthy and you get to where you want to be. But yeah, it definitely jogged my memory because I definitely remember your double-digit days, you know. But we've been through a couple different things. So, you know, it's been awesome. And, you know, it's always awesome to see, and it's fun to work with athletes that are really, truly pushing themselves and trying to find your breaking points without breaking.
Yeah, you know? Right. And you kept me healthy last summer when I was training for 29029. You work with such a range of clients. So high school athletes to professional athletes and wannabe athletes everywhere in between. I put myself in that wannabe athlete category.
I thought the professional one. I thought that's what you're talking about.
we can, I mean, I'll take it. But how did you start? When did you become an athletic trainer? How did you know that was what you wanted to do? What did the beginning of your journey look like?
So, you know, 99% of people like in this profession, they're like, I tore my ACL and then this guy was awesome. So that's what I did. That really wasn't my journey at all. Like, so I was working at a sports performance place, which was a really cool gym. And I liked it there, but I was really just going to school for business. And I only really remember, I remember the friend that told me, he's like, oh, this college up here is supposed to have a really good program and in sports medicine. And I'm like, I don't know, like, I guess I'll finish my associates. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just taking classes. And so I went up there and took it out and we interviewed, and then kind of got in there. And when I started taking these summer anatomy classes and stuff, it just kind of all started to click. But it was never like a huge major injury that I'm like, man, I just want to be someone to actually help. Something I would say, like reflecting back, is, I rode all through high school. And so, I really hurt my back in high school, and I didn't really go to PT or an ATC or anything. So I'm happy to be a person to help these kids work in better positions so they don't have that go on, because so much of that is preventable, about what's going on or how they're moving and that movement quality. But and it's not necessarily just the coach's fault, because the system is a bit overloaded. If I had 30 kids in here, the level of coaching would not be the same. That's why everything's one-on-one, max one-on-two, so.
Right. And so how much of what you do would you say is kind of a proactive approach to preventative and a responding to injury,
Reactive,
versus what
percentage?
I mean,
fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of the time I end up being a last stop for somebody, in that, like, they've tried chiro, they've gone to PT, they've gone to do these different therapies. And so they're kind of like, oh, like, X, Y, or Z referred me, Cameo referred me, whatever. And so, they're the harder cases that take a bit of doing. But we're also kind of known for that in town a little bit, is like, oh, well, you tried all this stuff, you need to try it. And so that's a portion. After we know people and like our group of clients, like, I try to keep that highway open of communication of, we have jujitsu athletes that know us, have worked with us through the years. And when they sprain a rib, we'll see them the next day, which is awesome. Right. Because the acute side is, I'll probably only have to see them a couple of times and we'll get them where they want to go. And that'll help prevent it happening again. So we see those cases that are harder because they've been so darn long, right. But then seeing the acute stuff. And then our middle is, we'll see these youth athletes a lot of the time. They might have an injury starting out, but then we kind of see them for preventative and then performance stuff on this end of, the rehab spectrum. Because I think that's the niche that we serve, is really taking these kids either from rehab or, right from injury, all the way back to their performance and getting them to perform better than they were in the first place. And that kind of circles back to prevention. If they're moving better, the quality's better, they're performing better, and then they get injured less.
Right. Amazing. I feel like we're guilty, Greg, of not maybe expending and seeking treatment in other ways, but kind of like, oh, I can work through this. And then finally giving in and saying, hey, it's not getting better. Can you please see us? And then immediately thinking, why did I wait so long to come in? And, I can speak to that in several instances. And Greg, I know most recently with your hip, you certainly can attest to that as well. So I just think it's amazing to think of it as like a full circle approach to maintaining wellness and health and movement in the proper way, because our bodies are so intricate. There's so much to know and so much that we just take for granted when it comes to like how we push ourselves and how we function as people, but as athletes.
And every person has this innate bias, right? That I think it's from ingrained when we're kids. The thing that we forget is we're so active when we're young. And so many of the movements that we do, crawling on the ground or playing or all this stuff that we don't do as adults, are actually restorative for when you do get hurt, right? So you are rehabbing in so many ways when you're kids, but things go away. You hurt your hip when you're a kid, it goes away. And part of that is you're moving and playing. You're not like, I hurt my hip, 2 a.m. or something, doing something crazy. And then, you're sitting all the time, right? Yeah. So you sit and you do all the adulting. But if you took a kid that hurt themselves, well, the next day they're playing with Johnny and running down the street, and then they're going on the playground. The movement ends up being restorative and healing in a lot of ways, but we don't get that as adults.
Yeah,
we have to be stuck. And so, but all of us get this bias of it'll go away. It always goes away, right? And it's this thing in the back of all of our minds, assuming that it will.
That's such a great perspective and such a great thought to offer, because you're exactly right. And then I think as adults, we do just think, well, I'll just rest it and it will get better and I'll be fine. And that's can sometimes be a detriment.
Yeah.
Greg, you have to share the story about the 2 a.m. doing something crazy reference, because I have a feeling that was slightly pointed at you.
Oh, it happens to athletes everywhere.
Yeah, 2 a.m.
Nothing good happens after midnight, right?
There we go. That's right.
So, just a public service announcement. Don't try to do a head kick, like a front roundhouse kick at 2 a.m, because you're not loosened up, you're not stretched out. And I'm not a very flexible person anyway, but for some reason on this, however many months ago it was, I thought that'd be a great idea to do some shadow boxing at 2 a.m. when I got up to use the restroom. So that's exactly what I did. There's this video of this guy that he gets attacked and he's like an MMA fighter and he takes these 2 dudes out and head kicks and all this stuff. So I must have been dreaming about that. And I wanted to reenact that. I'm like, well, what would happen if I needed to throw something like that? Could I do it? And the answer is no. No, I cannot. And so I pulled my groin pretty bad. I mean, I don't know, but I kept going to boxing and kept doing the workouts, and it just never got better. Like you said, as adults, we just think, well, it'll just kind of get better. But then finally, after months and months and months of just going through the pain, it hurt so bad just to sit, it felt like fire in my hip, So finally, got to go see Drivus, and so with your therapy and coaching, you gave me an exercise band to use at home, and just the guidance there to really work through it. I can tell you, I'm back to doing my workouts. I feel great. There's a little pain, but it's nothing like it was. And also years ago, I had trigger points from doing boxing workouts, and you were able to show me strengthening exercises and things to do on top of coming to you for some therapy. And that's a non-issue anymore, knock on wood. But, so just things like that. I think it's the macho tendency to just ignore things and they'll just go away, ignore my problems, they'll just go away. But I feel like, having someone like yourself, if you're doing physical activity, it's definitely critical to keep you in the game, So that's my 2 cents.
So no more head kicks at 2 a.m.
No.
And if you do, it's an immediate call the next day, even if nothing hurts, just to make sure that you.
Hey, just let you know, I did that last night and I'm okay.
Yeah. Or I need to come see you just in case, because I might not be okay in a couple of days. So that was how you started into this sports medicine, athletic trainer arena. What made you decide, you mentioned a business degree, what made you decide to kind of go out on your own and open your own place? My dad
just kind of instilled entrepreneurial kind of spirit. I had some small businesses when I was in high school, like a landscaping company and a car detailing company. And I definitely knew that's the way I wanted to go. It's not traditional for athletic trainers. There's not that many that go that route into more private practice, but there's some around the country. And if you do it right, you can thrive. But it wasn't really necessarily a thought right away. So I graduated. My wife and I, we were about to get married. I got a job out in Hawaii. We were going to move. So we moved out there. I was out there for 6 weeks, came back, got married, and then we worked at the university for a year. And then I transferred to another clinic, and then I started seeing CrossFit athletes on the side. So this is, probably 7 years ago. It wasn't nearly as big as it is now, of PTs and gyms and ACCs and gyms and taking care of people kind of there, which is much bigger market. There weren't that many people doing it, right? So, we were seeing lifting injuries and different things and working on the community. I would go to gyms and do that. And so we were growing there. And then we ended up, that was kind of like a side business. I'd go to clinic all day and then I go till 9 or 10 at night and then repeat, right? And so when we moved here, I didn't really know anybody. But I literally just went out and talked to people and knew when we moved here that that's what we were going to do. I wasn't going to get a job and half do it. So just talked to gyms, made relationships, help fix people. And, here we are, 5 years later and in 4.5 years later, so I just knew I wanted to go that direction. And now just the name of the game is creating a culture to help somebody else.
Yeah, wonderful. So our businesses are very different, but similar story. When we moved here, we didn't know anyone and just knew that was the direction we wanted to go and started targeting our audience. And so what did you find was, your biggest challenge in doing so? Not knowing anyone is a huge challenge, but how did you overcome that? And what challenges presented themselves after you were over that kind of first hump?
So I would say, like, looking back, I'm like, man, I was just crazy, like thinking like everything will work out and, you can just do all this stuff. The biggest thing was making relationships. That was, the hardest part, but also the most essential part. And it's the most uncomfortable because you're literally walking into places and not knowing anybody, right? And just kind of telling them what you do and how you can help and how you can benefit them, because you got to focus on that.
Right.
That would be one of the biggest hurdles. And then honestly, finding space. And that's another hurdle, finding what you want, without so many people doing the same thing. It wasn't like, okay, hey, I can follow this blueprint and just set it up just the way you guys did, or whatever. Like, it's so easy because I got all the check marks. And so figuring out like how it should work, what's the best way to make it work. Now there are things out there that are able to, like, blueprints and stuff you can follow, but there wasn't then,
So a positive mindset, a lot of tenacity, and the ability to pivot when things weren't working, kind of
change,
inquire into what was happening, why it wasn't working, and what you could do differently. It sounds like a lot of kind of iterations of what this is going to look like as it grows.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, now that we're in the position where we're starting to hire, it's a whole new journey. And I'm, comfortable and nervous all over again. Right. So it's this whole thing of figuring stuff out, talking to people that have done it. And it's just kind of lining stuff up but keeping an open mind and open communication and, creating that culture that you want to see.
Right.
That's kind of the next step. It's like when it's just you don't have a culture,
Right.
It's just you. So now it's like, how do you promote what you want to see,
Yeah, exactly. We experienced that as our business grew. And I think it's kind of a natural progression, but you're exactly right. It presents new challenges and new thoughts and new things that you have to take into consideration and back into that like discomfort zone. Like, I know what I'm doing and I know what it looks like this, but I want it to look like that. So, now I'm stressed out and uncomfortable, but it's like a necessary part of the growth trajectory, just across the board, not just in business, but across the board. And I know you mentioned about your dad kind of instilling this entrepreneurial mindset in you early. I know your wife also owns her own businesses and does some work on her own. And then I have to bring up that you are doing the same with your daughters, or from an outsider's perspective, with the eggs and their cute little cartons and stamps. And I just think that's so wonderful. So how have you implemented that into your family and shared, the balancing that with Heather and what she has going on? And what does that look like in your household?
Yeah. So I guess starting for my dad, like, he's a veterinarian. He had, I'm the youngest. He had me when he was, 47. So he was in a different stage of business, a different stage of life. And I guess that's what I really liked, like he was able to shift things around and spend time with us. And I was always really grateful that he was older because, he didn't do that whole 9-to-5 thing. I mean, he'll work, don't get me wrong, but like if we did trips together or this together, or, we used to do the month of August and go somewhere, or whatever. And it's like, all that stuff is what I want for my kids. Now I'm a little younger than that, right? Like if I waited 20 years, would we be in a different spot for that? Sure. But I'm trying to create that now. So that's like my biggest why is like, I want to spend time with my kids, and I want to be in control of that. You have to grind still. If you don't make time for your family, and if you don't take time to balance that, you're not going to, what is any of it worth? Like if your spouse isn't happy and you don't spend time with your kids and you don't have that really great, strong relationship, I mean, that's my goal, at least.
Right.
And so with our girls, I mean, Peyton's 4 and Willow's 20 months, she'll be 2 in August. And so same thing, like we got chickens randomly, and then we built a coop, and then we have a whole thing. And then we started getting eggs, and we're like, oh man, I guess we can give these away. And then I was like, okay, well, why don't we, we can sell them at the office. Peyton can have little egg stands, and it's just a way of, one, teaching her how money and stuff works, even though who knows if we'll have cash by the time she's older. Right. But
Right.
she can, I think it's such a natural skill that, I learned when I was a little bit older, but I just think it's so important. And to like put work into this and say, okay, hey, my time's worth that, or how do I invest in this? And also like how she can budget that money,
Mhm.
so she does we help her, but like she does some of the egg collection and some of the putting the cartons together, and she gets so excited about it, and now we're kind of pivoting, and Heather's trying to do some more stuff, like eventually the candles and different holistic things that she can do with the girls too. And
Mhm.
I think it's you're giving a nice great product that's helping the people that you're close with in your community, but it's instilling those values of, hey, we don't have to just do, and it's nothing's wrong with doing 9 to 5, but if you want a certain life and you want to do certain things, being in control of that is a great thing.
Yeah. Taking time back and a little bit of
Right.
freedom. And I agree. There's nothing wrong with the 9 to 5. And, some people would prefer that, and that's just fine too. But at the same time, it presents another option, especially so early on. I think that's so amazing with your girls. They're so young, but it's kind of just a way of life. And it becomes something that's instilled so young that maybe it won't feel like such a challenge or so scary to try something like starting your own business when they're a little bit older, because they've been exposed to it and have seen you and Heather thrive in your different ways and pivot and try things and fail and try again.
Right.
And I think that's so amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. And the chicken carton was like the cutest little thing when he brought them home.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to eat the eggs because I was like, they are just way, way too cute. So I think one of the next questions that I would have in kind of in alignment with finding harmony and making that a priority is like, how do you find that balance? Like if I do work 9 to 5 and I'm starting to kind of pursue my interests outside of my normal work and in the limited time that I have, because I would like to start my own business or do more of what I love or preserve time for my family. What do you think has been helpful for you in making that a priority? Or what advice would you give someone who is unsure of what to do?
Yeah, obviously, I think it depends on what you're trying to do. Obviously, we all have financial obligations that limit, our choices. And, what we have that's most precious and that's worth everything is time, right? Which we never know how much time that is. And we bet that we have the next day, right? So I feel like most of the time there's going to be a period of being uncomfortable. And that is, one, financially uncomfortable, right?
Sure.
You don't have a guarantee. But two, being uncomfortable you might be taking a little bit of time away from your kids temporarily, right? But you got to view that as an investment in what you're trying to gain. Now, I still think there should be a limit to that, right? Like, I mean, sure, I could open up, all right, I'm working Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every day of the week, all day. But one, that's not sustainable. Two, you're not getting closer to where, if that's your goal, to spend more time with your family and your kids.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of two methods. Usually it's burn the ships, you quit, you go all in, which is a scarier, but usually faster method, because you're all in and you have the time. When you do it slowly, it's more comfortable. right? But at the same time, sometimes it's a struggle of, what are you going to take away, right? You can't say you're working 40 hours, like, okay, well, you got to either get up earlier and work on that stuff, or, stay up later and work on that stuff. And it could be taking away more time. Like, think about all the wasted time you have. Like,
Sure.
Do you spend 2 hours, chilling at the end of the night because you need to down regulate? Sure. Like a lot of us do that, but at the same time, if you're trying to get somewhere else, right, maybe take 3 nights a week, that those 2 hours end up being a little bit of a grind, a little bit of work. I mean, if you're up anyway, and that might not be time you have to take away from your family because your kids are already down, depending on their age or whatever else.
Right. What I hear you saying is like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but really understanding your priorities and understanding that there's a cost to everything, and being okay with being uncomfortable as you do grind, but self-auditing along the way and kind of saying, okay, what's the reason I'm doing this in the first place? Am I staying in alignment with that? Or have I now gone too far on the other end of the pendulum? And
it's easy to do when you're chasing.
Yeah.
It's literally like you're chasing a rabbit. It goes under a tree. All right, you go on a tree and then you chase it and you're a little further. And you're like, where did my path go? Because I know I wanted it to go this way, but it's way over there. Yeah. And I'm over here where I'm just doing too much of something. But that's where you said self-audit, reflect, but have your path in line of what priority, what's number one, because then you can always revert back to that.
And have there ever been times when you felt in your journey like defeated, like maybe I can't do this? What was I thinking? I'm just, this is too much. I'm going to quit.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much every day,
I had a feeling you might say something like that.
For me, I do notice lack of sleep with kids. If I don't sleep, I stress,
Sure.
Not necessarily not getting sleep, but I worry about business and expenses and going out of it. I mean, and as an entrepreneur, like, I think it's natural to question like, okay, can I keep this going? Or is there an end to this? Or the economy changes, or, how can I bulletproof myself for this or that? And I think that's good because you might not overstep instead of like, oh, let's go, let's grow, let's go, let's grow. And I think there's a place for that, where you have to drive into the next stage, but you also have to stay lean enough to not collapse if that next stage falls out. I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, it does. And it was articulated very well. I think that it's just so common for people who are trying something new to feel defeated and ready to quit, and that you just each moment have an opportunity to reset and just really kind of refocus on what the goal is, and monitor yourself in a way that's like, okay, like you said, about being lean, what are the things that are necessary? What are the things that are not? And being open to that. It's a constant evolution in business and in life and in relationships across the board. So I think you answered that very well.
Oh, I appreciate it.
We have spent a lot of time while I've been in that very room with you, and we have talked a lot about reading and educating ourselves. And so I'm curious if there are any books that you're reading currently, or any that stand out as like a must read, must share book.
I go kind of through phases of, life gets crazy. I'll do more book, less book. I do a lot of audiobooks while I'm driving and stuff. I listen to a lot of podcasts too, just about the industry and different things. I really like Positive Intelligence, which is, kind of reframing some things, and it's very actionable as more of a mindset kind of book. That's the one that sticks out to me the most.
And you recommended that to me, and I read it, and I think it really sparked some deep reflection for me. And I think that like, it's a way of self-educating, and it's a way of like, it's not related to your industry or mine, but it's just, you can't help but relate it to your own industry then and push yourself to think differently. So I think that was a really great recommend, and I'll link that in the show notes, as well as where we can find more information about you. I'm not even sure that I mentioned that your business name is Athlete Pro and you're in Sarasota, Florida. And where else can we find you? Where else can we find more info?
Well, I'm always trying to do some stuff on Instagram. Some weeks are better than others. But that's athletepro.co. It's the same as our website at athletepro.co. And that's CO, not COM. You can always text me or give me a call if you need to connect about something or have a question about anything. I try to be available and an open book to all our clients. And I try to treat differently that way too, or you have access and, we can answer these questions, not necessarily when you're always in the office.
Amazing. And I can attest to that. Just like I was mentioning at the beginning of this, where you were on the phone with me mid-run to keep me going and keep my mind healthy as well as my legs. So Greg, do you have anything?
Yeah, this has been a great episode for me to watch. So good job.
You added
you did a great job
humor
over there.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, I just appreciate all your knowledge, and I feel like having someone like yourself that knows what they're talking about. That we try to be active, and it's a critical piece to this puzzle. So thank you for being awesome and being cool and knowing your stuff, and just all of it. We appreciate you.
Well, I really appreciate you guys. And, like we talked about so many times, the energy multipliers have to stay together,
right.
and just keep bouncing off and getting bigger and really supporting each other. And so I really appreciate you having me on here.
Oh, I love that. Thanks so much for being with us. And we'll make sure and call before we hurt ourselves
Wow. That's
yeah.
cool.
I mean, I feel like I've learned a little bit of my lesson to
okay.
be up on that. So
it's all right. Well,
I can't say that's going to happen.
We'll
try. That's right.